The fake news media breathlessly reported over the weekend that the Trump administration has banned the Center for Disease Control and Prevention from using the words fetus, transgender, vulnerable, science-based, entitlement, diversity, and evidence-based. The story, predictably, is not true, but it should be true because that is the essential Trump project. We will analyze the left's insidious abuse of language. Then, Elisha, Krauss, and Amanda Prestigiacomo join the Panel of Deplorables to discuss how expensive it would be to legalize these so-called dreamers. How's that for euphemistic language? Pope Francis's condemnation of fake news, and speaking of fake news, Al Franken's possible un-resignation. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. I have not slept in about 17 days. I am coming in from a flight last night. I had a red eye on Thursday, and then I had a red eye last night. So I got in at about 1 a.m., and it's so nice. Two things are so nice. President Trump, his administration, and the news media. Because just when you think, oh, God, what kind of show are we going to have today? I haven't been paying great attention to the news last day or so. You get a big whopper like this. This CDC story is the essential Donald Trump project. But before we can get to that, and there's a lot to analyze with that, we have to talk about safety. We got to talk about your neighborhood. We have to talk about 21st century technology and thank our sponsors over at Ring. So Ring's mission is to make neighborhoods safer. You know Ring because they came out with that video doorbell that all of the cool guys got right away, and then you thought, what is that? You can see there's a little video doorbell, and you can see who's at your door from anywhere. So you can be in the studio, you can be at work, you can be on vacation, sitting at the beach, and it'll pop up on your phone, and you can talk to them. You can see when someone's trying to break into your house. You can talk to a delivery man. You know, you see what's actually happening. And they know that home security begins at the front door, but it doesn't end there. So now they're extending that same level of security to the rest of your home with the Ring floodlight camera. So it's just like the doorbell. The doorbell allows you to see who is there, and you know whether you want to go let them in or not. The floodlight cam is a motion-activated camera and floodlight that connects right to your phone with HD video and two-way audio and lets you know the moment anyone steps onto your property. Now, for some of my listeners, this is going to help you secure your home and make sure that no one breaks in. And for some of my listeners, it's going to scare you away because you know when you go to try to break into someone's house, that light is going to come on. They're going to see you. Even if you take the floodlight camera, even if you take the Ring doorbell, it is all uploaded to the cloud, so they're going to get you. This is really amazing. In the old days, they used to have neighborhood watches, and they used to have more burglaries too. And this is just 21st century technology. So they did a little experiment. Ring in Los Angeles, in a not great neighborhood of LA, Ring gave out a bunch of its product, and within 6 months, they noticed a 55% reduction in home burglaries. I think that's the number. That is pretty amazing. So you can see and speak to visitors, even set off an alarm right from your phone. With the floodlight camera, with the doorbell, when things go bump in the night, you'll immediately know what it is. Whether you're home or away, it lets you keep an eye on your home from anywhere. It is the ultimate in home security. Seriously, this is the 21st century. It is unbelievable how affordable this technology is. This would have been unheard of even just a few years ago. Go out and get it. It is a really, really cool product. And you can save up to $150 off of a Ring home security kit right now when you go to ring.com/Knowles. That's Knowles, just like Beyonce. Ring.com/Knowles. What is it? That is ring.com/Knowles. Okay, we have got to get into this CDC thing because this is what PC is all about, and it's largely why Donald Trump was elected president. The Washington Post ran a fake story over the weekend, which is not exactly man bites dog, is it? But the headline goes like this: CDC gets list of forbidden words, fetus, transgender, diversity. That is fake news. That headline is not true. No words have been banned for use by the Trump administration. But that makes sense. When the Washington Post runs a headline, assume the opposite is true. Now, at most, there is some kernel of truth here. At most, agencies like the CDC have been directed to avoid certain language in budget proposals to facilitate funding from the Republican-controlled Congress, which makes sense. You want certain language to make it easier to pass these bills. But the story itself is absurd. So what happened? Nancy Pelosi, in typically untrue and hysterical fashion, tweeted out, "Danger!" all caps. "Trump admin is going further down a dangerous and un-American path of word and thought control. POTUS has no respect for and has banned words." That is truly unbelievable. This is total projection. It's Nancy Pelosi looking in the mirror and then throwing that onto Donald Trump. Now, federal officials, former Obama appointees, they've shrieked that the imaginary ban was Orwellian and stupid, but it doesn't end there. Here is, for comment, President Trump.
I know words. I have the best words. But there's no better word than stupid.
Well said. Absolutely right. Unfortunately, there is no government-wide language recommendation. This is just a directive regarding certain budget documents. The words in question, by the way, are fetus, transgender, vulnerable, science-based, entitlement, diversity, and evidence-based. And by the way, it's too bad that there are no government-wide language recommendations here, because all of those words that I just said are empty slogans. They're insidious, they are politically correct euphemisms intended to obscure what they really mean. So let's start with fetus. What is fetus? We use fetus to mean something that isn't a human being so we can kill it. But fetus comes from the Latin for offspring. That's all the word means. Why not call it an unborn baby? Why not call it offspring? Because the word fetus allows you to make the baby seem clinical, seem not human, seem not alive. We know two things about unborn babies. They're human and they're alive. But we need to wash over that. We need to obscure that language with muddy Latinate words that we don't really, oh, it's a fetus. Don't worry, we can kill it. It's just a fetus. Same with transgender. Now, the modifier trans means across or beyond, right? So it actually doesn't even make sense in the way they're using it, which is a man who thinks he's a woman or vice versa, or really wants to be one. That isn't even very precise. It would really mean transcending gender overall, going beyond the categories of gender, as might happen in heaven, right? There's no male or female in Christ. That would be the transcendence. It's funny, if you look in C.S. Lewis, I forget which book of his it is, it might be Miracles, he uses the word transsexual to refer to how in heaven we're not lusty and we don't have sexuality as much, but that's not how they use it. They use it because we don't want to say a man who thinks he's a woman, or a woman who thinks she's a man, or someone suffering from a psychological condition that makes them confused about their biological sex. Transgender is much easier. Vulnerable. What does vulnerable mean? We're all vulnerable. We're all going to die. No one here gets out alive. But what vulnerable is used to do is slice people up into little demographics and demagogue on them and use them as political fodder to achieve political goals. How about science-based or evidence-based? These two are totally demagogic political words. Of course, things are science-based. It's used by the left to say that anyone who doesn't go along with their crazy plans to disrupt the economy or to add more government spending or add more to the federal deficit, they're ignoring science. They seem to forget that you can't derive an ought from an is. You can't derive ideas about what we should do from things that are, but they try to glide over that, and so they'll say, well, this is science-based. The science tells me we have to raise taxes on everybody and spend a lot of money. That's the science. It's not my political point of view or my ideology. So those two as well, they're used to mean the opposite of what they really do. How about entitlement? What's an entitlement? Well, one, entitlements are bad because it leads to much more economic, or rather much more federal growth. The entire deficit in national debt is driven by these entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. But also, one isn't entitled to anything. What it really means is welfare. What it really means is a handout. It means going on the dole. But entitlement, that's the way that we polish it. Or diversity. Diversity is probably the most abused one. Diversity should mean differences, right? But the way it's used on campuses here, we say we have to have diversity, and that's why we need to ban anyone from speaking who thinks anything contrary to what we think in the university orthodoxy. Or diversity means race discrimination. So using the university example, you might say we need more diversity, and that's why we need to discriminate against Asian applicants to universities, because we need diversity. That's how we get diversity. It never means diversity of thought. Usually what it means is homogeneity. So apparently the CDC was told to replace science-based, for example, in these documents with, quote, the CDC bases its recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes. Good. That is more precise. Because science-based is so vague. Science-based is a euphemism. What we really mean by science-based, especially what the left means, is there an aspect of our thought which is scientific, and then we are reading that through our ideological lens with our values and our community guidelines or whatever. But science isn't the be-all and end-all, because policy doesn't come from science. We can't just have technocrats telling us what to do, because men aren't machines. There's a value in the world. There's moral weight. There's moral value. And so we can use science and the scientific method as much as it's useful for, and it's very useful, but it isn't sufficient, because there's another component to the world. There's more between heaven and earth that's dreamed of in our philosophy. There's a metaphysical component to the world too, and we have to take that into consideration, because politics is the relation of people to one another, and government is how we rule ourselves. Now, this directive is very limited, but it should expand. This is the essential Trump project. He shatters these gooey, awful euphemisms and empty language, which is what political correctness is, to get to the heart of the matter in his own very Trumpy covfefe way. Watch him expertly take on the euphemism army.
Are you aware that the term anchor baby, that's an offensive term? People find that.
You mean it's not politically correct, and yet everybody uses it? So you know what? Give me a different term. Give me a different term. What else would you like to say?
The American-born child with an undocumented immigrant.
Oh, you want me to say that? Okay. No, I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
It's brilliant. This was, by the way, one of the moments in the campaign where I started to think that Donald Trump maybe wasn't just a complete lunatic ignoramus. Thought maybe he knows what he's doing. Because what he's saying, there's anchor baby. It paints a picture. We know what we mean. We're talking about children who are born in the United States as a pathway to citizenship for themselves and their families. And it's very hard to hear what that reporter is saying, but it's something to the effect of, well, you should call them future undocumented American citizens without the blah, 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 obscuring the whole thing. And Trump says, yeah, you know what? I'm going to stick with anchor baby. I'm going to stick with the clear language, because that's how I'm going to convince people about these issues. I can't convince them on your terms, on your crazy abusive language. I'm going to use reality, terms that better correspond with reality, and that's going to break your stranglehold on thought and politics. George Carlin, the late comedian, talked about this himself. Here he is.
We're using that soft language that takes the life out of life. And it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse. Give you another example. Sometime during my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. False teeth became dental appliances. Medicine became medication. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Car crashes became automobile accidents. Partly cloudy became partly sunny. Motels became motor lodges. House trailers became mobile homes. Used cars became previously owned transportation. Room service became guest room dining. And constipation became occasional irregularity.
By the way, this is like decades ago that he's talking about this. It's gotten so much worse since then, but it's that soft language. It takes the life out of the words. It takes what's convincing out of the words, so that the people who are using this deceptive language, so that they can deceive us. Euphemisms are insidious. People often say, oh, it's just semantics. You're just arguing over semantics. And of course, these people don't know what semantics means. Semantics means meaning. It's the study of meaning. It's how signs and words and symbols relate to one another and to reality. This is why the euphemisms are so insidious. They just proceed by subtly deceiving us, by painting just a little bit off, an untrue picture of reality. Christopher Hitchens wrote, "For the sake of argument, then, one must never let a euphemism or a false consolation pass uncontested. The truth seldom lies, but when it does lie, it lies somewhere in between. It lies, it's just a little off. We're just going to push you slightly a little bit off the mark until we see a vision of reality that bears no relation to the truth." Winston Churchill mockingly admitted, quote, "Perhaps we have been guilty of some terminological inexactitudes." What he's really saying is we lied to you, but he's mocking even that concept in that phrase, terminological inexactitudes. Because if you heard that, if some lefty went on television and said terminological inexactitudes, your eyes would glaze over and they would get away with the deception. But really it's lies. That PC and euphemisms like this are lies. Language is the medium of our consciousness. It's how we view the world. That's why the left is so insistent on political correctness, on everybody using their terms and looking at the world on their terms. This is why they're so insistent over these pronouns. Virtually nobody in the country suffers from psychological gender confusion. There are like 5 of these people. There are not a lot of these people. They're suffering and we can be compassionate to them. But the left has invested countless funds, countless hours, energy into a national campaign to make everyone refer to men as she and women as he. Why are we talking about this all the time? Doesn't that strike you as a little odd? If this campaign of language were really about the vanishingly small minority of people clinically confused about their biological sex, wouldn't it be a smaller conversation? But of course not. It's part of a larger project of language to get us to buy their premises, their relativistic premises, their debased and barbaric view of politics where we're just different competing interest groups that have no relation to the truth, rather than civilized people who look at the world in different ways and debate it and try to get to reality. The truth is arrogant. They try to use reason to get to that truth. Here are some other examples. This is unbelievable. We no longer have criminals. According to Obama's Department of Justice, we have justice-involved youth. Justice-involved youth is the terminology that Obama's DOJ started using to refer to criminal kids. Justice involved. Now, ironically, they're injustice involved, right? They're committing injustices, they're committing crime, but justice involved. We can't even say that they're offenders. They're not offenders. They're just involved. You know, I'm involved in justice, or I pay my taxes so that we have a criminal justice system. I give my legitimacy to a government. I admit to its credibility. That would be involved in justice. These kids are criminals, but we can't say that. That's too mean. That gives us the wrong picture. We don't have wars anymore. We just have overseas contingency operations. Whatever. Isn't that so vivid? Doesn't it really paint a vivid picture? The government forcing you to buy a product from a private company is not a mandate. It's not an unprecedented mandate. It's a, quote, individual shared responsibility payment. Oh, good. Okay, in that case, take my money. Here's my check. The estate tax is used to refer to what is a death tax. What is the death tax? When you die, you have to pay a tax. It's unbelievable. That has been taxed at the corporate level, at the income level, at the capital gains level. But they got to get you on the estate, or rather on the death tax, by calling it the estate tax. Oh, well, it's an estate. It's no big deal. Illegal aliens became undocumented workers. The most absurd version of this is the dreamers. The dreamers. These are illegal aliens. This is a clear term, but no, they're just dreamers. What, you don't like the dreamers? You hate dreams? You want to kill dreams? You monster. Women's health now means killing a baby in the womb. That is women's health. You know, when you call up your grandmother and you say, hey, how you doing? She goes, oh, well, I can still kill babies in the womb, so I have that. At least I have that. I don't think so. But that is the euphemism. We've even gone past pro-choice, which in itself is ridiculous. Of course, it's a choice. The question is, what choice is it? We have choices. We're free people. The public option or the single-payer system. Those are those two euphemisms instead of government-controlled health care. We have affirmative action instead of racial discrimination. But what is affirmative action? It's giving some people privileges based on their race and hurting some people based on their race. So I don't think that there's anything terribly affirmative for Asian students who are applying to American universities. What that is, by their view and by any serious view, is racial discrimination. But that sounds too icky. Terror attacks are man-caused disasters. Gay marriage was lost on these grounds. So the term gay marriage, which then became marriage equality, even a more outrageous euphemism, it presumed a premise. So the conservative opposition to gay marriage is not that gay people should be discriminated against or not have certain rights or whatever. It's that marriage does not include same-sex unions. It's just not what marriage is. It would be like, it's just a nonsense. It's like saying, what's the color of 7? It doesn't have a logical meaning. And the left knew this, so they used the term. The minute they used the term, it totally shifted the debate. It skipped the step of, what is marriage? What do we think marriage is in 2017 in our culture? What does it mean for society, for individuals, for the institution? No, it became, marriage can include same-sex unions, and will they have those rights? This is where we got to marriage equality. Because if it's a question of rights and equality, they have to win. You can't oppose civil rights and equality. And it totally skipped over, totally dishonestly and disingenuously skipped over the real question, which is, what is marriage? And if marriage can include monogamous same-sex unions for the first time ever, why would we exclude polygamous people or polyamorous arrangements from marriage? That is just as bigoted by all of that logic. Now there's raising revenue. We always have to raise revenue. That's confiscating wealth through taxation. There's giveaway for the wealthy. That means allowing people to keep more of their own money. That's the giveaway for them when you let them keep what's theirs. Government spending has become investment. Doesn't invest in anything, it just spends, but that's investment. Global cooling became global warming, which became the unfalsifiable climate change. It's hard to beat that. Climate change, we notice that it changes. We notice that there are ups and downs. So that's how they won an argument there. Obviously, we have the holiday that must not be named. You know the holiday. You're getting ready for the holiday season to welcome that big holiday man with the big beard and really refer back to the incarnate birth of the holiday guy. Yeah, that's this is what the war on Christmas is about. It's all same argument holds for the war on Christmas. Who cares about the words? Who cares? Just semantics. Right. They care. There's a reason they care. Even the word liberal became illiberal. It used to be liberals were liberal. Now they're not liberal. They're completely illiberal. They're intolerant of anyone else's views. And we should take care to follow President Trump's lead on this and avoid euphemistic language at every turn. I know it's tempting. I know. I was just in New York. It's very tempting to try to make the New York Times like us, or sophisticated, fancy people at cocktail parties like us. Just say, who cares about the pronouns? Who cares about these silly terms? It's just language. They can have it if they want it. Who cares? The left cares. We should care too. The left cares a lot about it. We should not cede to them a syllable, because euphemistic language gives away whole premises. It in turn concedes the culture. Ultimately, it concedes our politics and our government and our liberty. Words matter, ideas matter. Reject PC gobbledygook and only use the best words, folks. Come on, we have them. We got the best words. Let's bring on our panel to discuss. We have Elisha Krauss and Amanda Prestigiacomo, an all-female panel of deplorables today, and an all-Daily Wire panel.
Hey, the best kind.
It is the best kind. Very nice to see you both. Two aspects on this story. Elisha, as far as the directive itself, is there an actual story here? Is this a news story, or were they just getting very excited to knock Trump on something?
Oh, of course, they're super excited to knock Trump on something. And I mean, Ben has said it over and over and over again, that being our boss, Ben Shapiro, so I'll say something nice about him now because it is the Christmas season, is that he's totally right on this. Season, yeah. The Christmas season. Come on, Michael, no war on Christmas here. Stop with that political correctness. It is the Christmas season, and Ben is right, so I'll let him have that he's right. That the mainstream media often jumps just right to anything that Trump says or anything that anyone within the administration does and just blows it up for no reason. And sometimes it's hard that if he ever gets to a 10, to say that everything is a 10 when some of the things that he does are maybe a level 4 or 5. But that's just too much for them. Everything they take and run with.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, I guess there's this little directive. Who really cares? We're talking about budget proposal documents. But they got it. They're going to run. Democracy dies in darkness. Now, speaking of George Carlin, Carlin said famously, when fascism comes to America, it will not be in brown and black shirts. It will not be with jackboots. It will be Nike sneakers and smiley shirts. Smiley, smiley. And the smiley is the issue. This is the issue here. Amanda, when we refer to men who think they're women or wish very much to be women as she or rather as he or him rather than she or her, we look like jerks. Is there any way to avoid this?
Well, that's kind of the whole, as you deconstruct it, that's kind of the whole point of them reconstructing language and using euphemisms and being so adamant that we use these pronouns or whatever that is at task for that day. That's why it's so important, because then the opposite side, like, how could you possibly be against, you know, equality or diversity or, you know, insert buzzword here. That's the whole point of the left deconstructing language. So when it comes to things like gender and how they're just deconstructing gender, it paints the right to be bigots, right? They hate trans people. How dare you not call this grown man in a dress, she or, or Rebecca
monster.
or whatever. I mean, this is all by plan. And as you said, I think the conservatives need to really push back on this. They're going to call you a bigot anyways. They're going to call you transphobic anyway. Just say what is truth. Like, you just have to stick to the truth, because otherwise they win. Like, we can't keep conceding ground as we do so often. So they're going to call you names anyway. And as we've seen from this past election, speak truth.
But is there any way not to look like a jerk? I'm worried that we don't look good to a voting public, even though we're saying a true thing, that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and you can't magically become one by wishing very much. Elisha, you're much nicer than I am. Is there any way to like smiley and look good on this?
I don't know. I mean, I keep reading disturbing things in the news today about quote unquote fetuses and what the UK with their national healthcare socialist system is doing and not helping babies born early, and I'm going to call them babies. So the Trump administration's decision to change language with the CDC it's like fine. It's fine by me. I mean, if they want us to call them what they want to be called, then maybe they should show us some respect and call babies in utero actually babies and not this fetuses. And I just think it's really disturbing. I think that the broader, it's on one hand they want to have a hashtag Me Too, women are always victims movement, but then on the other hand they want to change the narrative of what the nuclear family is or the roles that men and women play in society. And I just, every single time I try to look at it, every single time I try to think of like the leftist perspective, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know what their long game is here.
Well, you're so right on the fetus bit. That is so smart of them. They've found a demographic that doesn't vote. Reagan used to say that he notices everyone who's in favor of abortion has already been born, and those little babies don't have a voice in any of this. They have the least voice of anybody. So if you call them by a ridiculous euphemism, they won't get angry and vote you out of office. But we do run that risk, and I think you're both right. I think we just have to put the truth above all things, and if you state the truth in good faith and not trying to just be a jerk about it, I think you'll get some credit for it and people might come around. But, there is that Bible. It says people hate the truth, they're going to run away from you. So beware of what you're doing. Caveat emptor. Okay, I've got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. We have much more to talk about today. We got a lot of great news out there. Pope Francis is saying things about fake news and probably damning CNN to hell. We've got the Dreamers. We've got Al Franken unresigning. I know you want to see it. We appreciate everybody who already subscribes. You help us keep the lights on. After my 2 red eyes in 3 days, I need the covfefe in my cup, and you help fill it up. If you are not already subscribed, go to dailywire.com, and you can see the rest of the show. It's $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. What do you get for it? You get me. You get Andrew Klavan. You get the Ben Shapiro Show. Yeah. I know. We might get to the good stuff. Here it is. Now, you know as well as I do. You've been reading the news. We might get a tax reform bill. When that tax reform bill comes down, may God help you. You better be ready for this. We know not the time or the hour when the tax reform bill will be passed, but you need that leftist tears tumbler. Otherwise, you're going to drown in all those salty, salty tears. So go to dailywire.com right now. You can have them hot or cold, always salty and delicious. We'll be right back.